Welcome back to Life's Chillent. My name is Avital, and this week's Parshat is Parshat Emor. Parshat Emor has two main subjects, two main areas of focus. The first is about laws pertaining to the Kohanim, the priests. And it's laws about who they can marry, that they have to serve in a state of physical and spiritual purity. It's about how they can have their hair cut and how they mourn their family members' deaths. And it's a lot of laws pertaining to them. And then the second half of the Parsha is really focused on the Jewish holidays. It gives us the listing of all of the holidays and what offerings we would bring on them. So it goes through Passover and Sukkot and Shavuot and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and it talks about Shabbat. So two very important but different topics. So what I wanted to focus on today relates to something about the laws of the Kohanim, and a beautiful lesson I think we can learn from something that the Torah teaches us about the Kohanim and how they mourned the loss of their family members. So the Parsha actually opens with this verse. It says, Hashem spoke to Moses, and he said, "Say to the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, and tell them, each of you shall not contaminate himself to a dead person among his people, except for the relative who is closest to him, to his mother and to his father, to his son, to his daughter, to his brother, and to his unwed sister. And to those people shall he contaminate himself." So basically that these were the people that when they died, the Kohanim were not allowed to come in contact with a dead body because they always needed to be ready to serve in the temple. And death is sort of a spiritual contamination that sort of spreads through physical contact. So they weren't allowed to be around dead people, except for the ones closest to them. And the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, who again started as Aaron and then it passed down to his sons, they were not allowed to contaminate themselves by dead bodies for anyone. And it's very interesting because, again, they always needed to be prepared and pure for service. I think what we can learn is the Kohanim were human. They were human, they had emotions, they went through things that were difficult, life, death, the process, the life cycle, and they would also mourn death just like everybody else. They would mourn death, they would be sad, they'd want to be around family and relatives. The Kohanim had to make a sacrifice. They had to make a big sacrifice in their jobs in the sense of they couldn't just stop everything. In the way that when we would lose somebody in our community or somebody important to us, where sort of the world stops and everything just turns, your attention is solely focused on this, the Kohanim really didn't have that luxury of sorts. They needed to always be in a state where they could continue their work in the temple. And so, again, for regular Kohanim, it was only the people who were closest to them could their world sort of stop and they could put themselves into that physical state. But the Kohen Gadol couldn't even do that. And so I think the lesson that we can learn from this is that we have to learn how to compartmentalize our emotions, how to express them at the right times, and how to be able to reserve them for those right times for the appropriate occasion and response. Because often our emotions can be big and they can be hard, and it can be really hard to put them in a box and say, I feel this and I'm going to deal with it later and continue to focus on my task. Because emotions can be overwhelming and it can really make it hard for us to be able to continue to accomplish our task, to remain focused. But what we learn here from the Kohanim is that it is a really important lesson and a beautiful idea to be able to compartmentalize, to set aside how we're feeling right now in order to accomplish the task at hand, and then we can come back to that at a later time and mourn it properly or feel it properly. And so I think that's a very important lesson that we can learn from this week's Parsha. I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.